I'm going to try explaining to you what algebra really is and why people talk about it. Why do we care and what's so special about algebra? So algebra is an Arabic word, right? It just means balance. And you will see why, because I'm going to introduce a few terms, okay? So we're going to have the word equation. And I'm going to explain what these words mean. So we're going to have equation. We're going to have terms. We're going to have coefficients. And you will get used to these words when you work more with algebra. And of course, we're going to have the famous x. And you'll also see why we write the x in this special way. Okay, so an equation just means there has to be an equal to sign. So for example, 5 plus 6 equals 11. This is an equation, right? We all know this. We know 5 plus 6 equals 11. This is an equation because there's an equal sign and this is true. So that's an equation. 5 plus 7 equals 13. Well, this is not an equation, right? Well, even though there's an equals to sign, this is not true. 5 plus 7 is equal to 12, not 13. So this is not correct. So this is like an x, that means no. This is a tick, that means yes. Term. What is a term? Before we even go to term, let's look at x, our friend x right here. So what does an x mean? So let's say I know that 2 times 5 plus 6 equals 16, right? I already know this, so there's nothing special about this. But what if I said, okay, I don't know what this number is. I don't know that's a 5, okay? So I said 2 times something. Now I don't know what that something is. So 2 times something plus 6 equals 16. Well, how would I get to that something? And there's many ways to get to it. But before we even get to the something, we don't want to write something every single time. So instead of writing something, we just write x. So I just do 2 times x. And we don't do the x like this right here. We don't use this x. We use this curly x right here. Because this x looks a lot like multiplication and we can get confused. So we just use this type of x right here. So we have 2x plus 6 equals 16. Okay, now I want to get to what the x is because I want to find out what that something is. Okay, what can I do? Let's say I subtract 6 on both the sides, okay? Because let's see what happens when I do that. Okay, so I have 2x plus 6 minus 6 is equal to 16 minus 6. Now you have to remember, whenever you do something in algebra, you have to do it on both the sides. If I do it on the left hand side, I do it on the right hand side as well. So if I subtract 6 on the left hand side, I have to subtract 6 on the right hand side as well. Now why did I subtract 6? Well, because you see, this now will cancel out. So I'm going to be left with 2x is equal to 16 minus 6 is equal to 10. Okay, now what do I do? Well, I want to get to x by itself, right? Because that's what I'm trying to find. Well, if I divide both sides by 2, then this 2 will go away, and then we'll be left with our answer over here. So I'm going to divide by 2, so I'm going to have 2x divided by 2 is equal to, and again, whatever you do on the left-hand side, you also do on the right-hand side. So I get 10 divided by 2. And now these will cancel out because 2 divided by 2 is just 1. So I'm going to be left with x is equal to 10 divided by 2, which is 5. And that's what we started with, right? We started with the 5 over here. But now I'm saying, okay, let's say I didn't know that was 5. How would I get to 5? And we just use algebra to get to 5. So that's what algebra is. We're just balancing the equation on both the sides. We're finding the x that will make this equation true. This equation, 2 times something plus 6 equals 16. We want to make sure that it's true. And we do that by finding what the value of that something or x is. Now let's say I gave you that x, right? So I gave you 5. So I gave you 2 times 5. But then I said, okay, instead of plus 6, I'm going to give you plus x. And now I don't know that something, and I say it's equal to 16. Now what do I get? Well, again, so we have 2 times 5 is 10. So we have 10 plus x equals 16. Okay, now what do I do? Well, if I subtract 10 on both sides, what will happen? So I get 10 minus 10 plus x is equal to 16 minus 10. And then 10 minus 10 will cancel out. I'll be left with x is equal to 16 minus 10, which is equal to 6. And that's what we needed. We wanted to find this 6 right here. So you can see x can literally be anything. You can have anything that you want. You can just represent it with x. I could have made the 2 into x. So let's say I gave you the 5 and the 6 and the 16. And I wanted you to find the 2. I could make that the x. Or I could make the 16 the x. I could give you 2 times 5 plus 6. And then I could say that's equal to x. And well, that would be the easiest example, right? Because you just do 2 times 5 is 10 plus 6 is 16. So x is basically something. That's really what it is. So x is equal to something. And all we're trying to do with algebra is we're trying to find that x. We want to know what it is, but we don't know what it is. Now coefficients. What's a coefficient? Well, the coefficient is the number that's multiplied by x. So we saw this right here. 2x plus 6 equals 16. 2 is the coefficient of x in this case. Coefficient. This just means the number before x. That's honestly all that it means. In this case right here, the coefficient of x is this number right here. Well, what's that number? That's just 1, right? Because anything multiplied by 1 is just itself. So the coefficient of x over here is equal to 1. This is the coefficient of x. And of course, we don't have to use x. We can use y, we can use z, we can use a, b, c, we can use whatever we want. And when we have more than one equation, so if I have 2x plus 5 equals 8, and I have 2y plus x equals 9, well, if I want to find x and y, what do I do now? And this is when algebra comes in use, right? These are called simultaneous equations. And I made a video on this. You should go and check it out. These are called simultaneous equations. Because you're going to find a number x and you're going to find a number y that works for both these cases. You're going to find a number x that will make this true, and the same x and the y will also make this true. If it's possible, of course. It has to be possible. And in this case, I'll tell you it is possible. So yeah, this is just an introduction to algebra. Algebra, all you're trying to do is you're trying to make the left-hand side, so I'm going to write LHS, the left-hand side, to be equal to the right-hand side. So that's RHS. And the way you do that is by, you have something called x. And x just means I'm going to find whatever that is. X just means I don't know what it is and I need to find it. We said terms. Terms just means like a phrase. It's like, in English, that would be like a phrase. For example, I have... what do I have? I have 2x. Let's do it right. Let's write it here. I have 2x plus 6, right? Well, this is one term, and this is another term. So 2x is one term. This is term 1, and 6 is another term. But we don't really care about it. All we really care about is the coefficient of x and x itself, and that's what it does. Now, the important thing you need to remember is that whatever you do on the left-hand side, you do on the right-hand side. So I'll write it down because it's important. So whatever you do, and you should write it down as well if you're learning algebra for the first time. Whatever you do on the left hand side, you must, and I'll write must in capitals, you must do on the right hand side, because that's the whole concept of algebra. You're trying to balance the equation, and you can only balance it. Let's say I put 5 kgs over here, then I must put 5 kgs over here as well. Otherwise the scale, let's say that we had a scale right here, whatever that is, right? That's a scale. If I put 5 kgs here, well, I have to put 5 kg here as well because I want it to be balanced. And that's algebra, remember? Algebra just means balancing equations. So yeah, that's what algebra is. X is just something that we have to find. There's nothing special about x. It's just a letter that we use to denote that, okay, I need to find whatever that x is. So yeah, I hope that made sense. If there are any more questions, there are more videos on algebra on my YouTube channel. You should go check them out. There's simultaneous equations, and there are other things as well. So yeah, if there's any questions you have, write them in the comments and let me know what else you want to see in future videos.